When the DHCPv4 server is not in the exact same broadcast domain as the client, you might run into an issue whereby those DHCP discover messages, which are broadcasts, are not relayed to the DHCP server in that other broadcast domain. Let's examine our topology. We can see that PC4 is in VLAN 20. Where's the DHCP server for PC4? It's in VLAN 100, which is a completely different subnet. So we need some device, whether it's the default gateway or just some router with routing capabilities to get to that DHCP server. We need that device to be able to accept those DHCP discover messages and relay them to that DHCP server. And we accomplish this by utilizing the IP helper address. So it's important that the interface that is on the local area network that the DHCP discover message is being received on is configured with this IP helper address. I've seen it before where the IP helper address was configured on the interface going towards that DHCP server, and that's not accurate. So for example, in this case, if you configured it on gigabit 1/0/24 of DSW1 or interface VLAN 100, that's incorrect. It has to be on the interface that's receiving those DHCP discover messages. So for VLAN 20, it would be interface VLAN 20 that IP helper address would be needed. So PC4 right now is complaining they don't have access to the internet. That seems to be a common problem within our topology. So we'll type in ping 192.0.2.1, and we confirm that PC4 cannot reach the internet. So we look at the output of ipconfig, and we can see based on the addressing information that PC4 has auto-configured itself with a PIPA, automatic private IP addressing, a 169.254/16 address. So we know there's something wrong between PC4 and the default gateway. If we examine the DHCP process on DSW1, and we can do that by typing in debug IP DHCP server packet, and we'll also take a look at events too. And then let's on PC4, let's disable its interface and let's re-enable it. So that way there it starts sending out DHCP discover messages. And let's see if we receive any on DSW1. And we do. Right off the bat we do. So we can see that we are receiving a DHCP discover message. But that's it. There's nothing for it though. There is no address pool for 10.1.165. So our router, in this case DSW1, which has an IP address in the appropriate subnet, is saying there's no address pool. Well, in this case, we don't want an address pool because we're using the DHCP server in VLAN 100. So the problem right now is related to the fact that we don't have a device relaying those DHCP discover messages to the DHCP server. We type in the command show run interface VLAN 200, VLAN 20, we can see there is no IP helper address configured in this case. So if we go into global configuration mode, interface VLAN 20, IP helper address, 10.1.100.100 is the address of that server. Let's look at the output of show run interface VLAN 20. There's the command. Let's also take a look at the output of show IP. Show IP interface VLAN 20. Notice what it says here. It says helper address is 10.100.100. So you could even verify on that interface if the IP helper address has been configured, and if it was, is the appropriate IP address configured? Because maybe it was configured. It was just the wrong address. So show IP interface will also tell you the helper address command. And now, let's bounce that interface on PC4 again. So we disabled it. Now we're going to re-enable that interface. Let it come back up. We'll go back to DSW1. Pardon me, I meant let's look at the command line interface. Here we go, that's what I wanted. Analyze IP config. And there we go. We have an IP address of 10.1.102/26 with a default gateway of 10.1.1.66. And what do we want to do? We always want to verify if our solution worked. 192.0.2.1. And we now have successful connectivity. So that IP helper address must go on the interface that is receiving those DHCP discover messages, and it must be the appropriate address.